My name is Anna Santiago. I'm 45 years old, and I learned that blood isn't thicker than water the night my sister called me a burden in front of our entire family. The words echoed across Carmen's marble foyer while our relatives nodded like it was gospel. Carmen smirked in her designer dress, holding court in her pristine mansion, painting me as broke, pathetic, invisible. But what she and everyone else didn't know, the story wasn't hers to control anymore. Because the truth I carried would flip this family upside down. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if the story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Growing up, I learned my role early. Carmen was the golden child, flawless in my mother's eyes. Every accomplishment she made was magnified, celebrated, framed on the wall. Every misstep I made was magnified too, but in the opposite way. When Carmen came home with a B+, Mom cheered like it was Harvard. When I brought straight A's, I got a nod, maybe silence. Carmen broke curfew and snuck out with boys. Teenagers will be teenagers, Mom laughed. She's just spirited. The one time I raised my voice about fairness, I was grounded for weeks. Family dinners felt like stages where Carmen performed and I disappeared. Our aunts gushed about her outfits, her charm, her latest boyfriend. If I mentioned my debate win or honor roll placement, the subject changed before I finished my sentence. The pattern followed into adulthood. Carmen's real estate license? Champagne toast. My business degree? Barely a shrug. You'll probably quit anyway, Mom had muttered. When I launched my logistics company, Carmen announced her first $1 million sale. Guess which headline the family remembered? At weddings, reunions, funerals, it was always the same. Carmen dazzled in new clothes, dripping with success, while whispers followed me. Still single, still working too much, still so serious. They didn't know about the nights I stayed late building my company, the contracts I negotiated, the empire I was quietly constructing. They only saw what Carmen wanted them to see. A sister who never amounted to anything. And tonight was no different. Anna, you should really think about your future. At your age, still renting that little apartment? She trailed off with a practiced sigh. Luis, our younger brother, jumped in with his usual smirk. At least Anna's consistent. Same job, same apartment, same boring routine for what, 15 years now? The laughter that followed cut me like glass. Aunt Rosa nodded knowingly. Carmen's right, mija. You should be more ambitious like your siblings. I stood in the corner holding my water glass, wearing my simple black dress, the one Carmen had already commented on twice. That dress again, Anna? I think I saw you wear it to Christmas 2 years ago. Anna doesn't understand what it means to build something, Luis continued, gesturing around Carmen's showpiece kitchen. Look at what Carmen has achieved. This house, her reputation, her success, and me, I'm about to close another major deal. We've made something of ourselves. Mom appeared from the living room, drawn by the conversation like she always was when her favorite children held court. Anna, you should be more like Carmen and Luis. They know how to take care of their family. They understand responsibility. That sentence carved into me because I was carrying more responsibility than any of them knew. But they'd never asked about my work, never visited my office, never seen the warehouse operations that employed 200 people. To them, I was the quiet sister with the boring job who didn't drive a Mercedes or live in a mansion. You know what your problem is, Anna? Carmen set down her wine and fixed me with that patronizing smile I had seen 1,000 times. You've always been... She paused, letting the silence build while everyone leaned in. Just a burden. The words hit the room like a slap. Even Luis looked surprised at the venom in her voice. But the relatives? They nodded. They actually nodded, like Carmen had finally said what they'd all been thinking. I mean, let's be honest, Carmen continued, emboldened by their agreement. We're all successful contributing members of this family. We've built businesses, bought homes, created legacies. And Anna just exists. taking up space at family gatherings, never offering to help with anything meaningful, never stepping up when the family needs support. Uncle Miguel cleared his throat. Carmen's not wrong. Anna's always been the quiet one. The one who doesn't contribute, Aunt Rosa added softly. Mom nodded slowly. Anna, you've always been so focused on yourself, your job, your routine. You've never understood what it means to be there for your family. I stood frozen, water glass trembling in my hands. Around me, 15 relatives, people I'd quietly supported for years in ways they'd never know, agreed that I was nothing more than a burden. The woman who'd paid Carmen's down payment, the sister who'd covered Luis's debts, the daughter who'd handled Mom's medical bills without being asked. A burden. I set my glass on the counter with shaking hands. I should go. Don't be dramatic, Anna, Carmen called as I headed for the door. I'm just being honest. Someone needs to tell you the truth. But as I walked through that marble foyer, past the crystal chandelier I'd helped finance, I wasn't thinking about Carmen's cruelty. I was thinking about bank statements, transfer receipts, 18 years of monthly payments, $50,000 every single month, and how none of them knew where their money actually came from. I drove home in silence, but for the first time in years, I wasn't absorbing their criticism. I wasn't questioning my worth. Instead, I was calculating, planning. And for the first time since I'd started supporting them, I was wondering what would happen if I stopped. Back in my little apartment, the modest two-bedroom I'd chosen deliberately while funneling my wealth to them, I pulled out the file I'd never wanted to face. Financial records, bank transfers, 18 years of documentation that told the real story of the Santiago family's success. The story Carmen would never tell at her dinner parties. The first transfer, September 2007. $50,000 to Carmen Santiago. Memo, house down payment. I'd watched her cry with joy at the closing, telling everyone how she'd saved every penny for her dream home. I sat in the back row, silent, while she accepted congratulations for her incredible discipline. December 2008, $75,000 to Luis Santiago. Memo, business loan, restaurant. His first venture, the one that failed within 8 months. He blamed the economy, the location, everything except his complete lack of experience. When it folded, he never mentioned repaying me, just moved on to his next revolutionary idea. March 2010, $30,000 to Isabel Santiago. Memo, medical expenses. Mom's surgery, the one that saved her life. She'd spent weeks in the hospital telling nurses how blessed she was to have successful children who could help in her time of need. She'd never once said my name. The pages blurred together. Carmen's second house, Luis's tech startup, Mom's new car, Carmen's renovations, Luis's cryptocurrency scheme. Year after year, month after month, $50,000 disappearing from my accounts and reappearing as their success. I heard footsteps on the stairs and knew it was Marissa before she knocked. We'd built Santiago Logistics together 15 years ago, but somewhere along the way, I'd become the face everyone forgot while she became the partner who kept me grounded. Anna. She let herself in with her key, took one look at me surrounded by papers, and sighed. Please tell me you're not reviewing those statements again. I gestured to the scattered documents. Do you know what Carmen called me tonight? A burden. Marissa's face hardened. What did you say? Nothing. I never say anything. I just stand there and take it while they mock my apartment, my clothes, my boring life. I laughed bitterly. If only they knew their boring burdened sister had been funding their empire for nearly 2 decades. Anna, you can't keep doing this to yourself. Look at this. I grabbed a bank statement from last month. Carmen's mortgage payment, $8,000. Luis's credit card bills, $12,000. Mom's living expenses, $15,000. Aunt Rosa's granddaughter's private school, $5,000. Uncle Miguel's business loan payment, $10,000. $50,000. Marissa, every month, for 18 years. Marissa sat beside me on the couch. That's nearly $11 million. $11 million from the family burden. The words tasted bitter. And you know what hurts the most? It's not the money. It's that they genuinely believe their own story. Carmen thinks she's self-made. Luis thinks he's an entrepreneur. Mom thinks her children take care of her. They've rewritten history so completely that I've become invisible in my own family's narrative. Why do you keep enabling them? It was a question Marissa had asked me hundreds of times, and I never had a good answer. Because I thought if I just helped them enough, supported them enough, eventually they'd see my value. Eventually they'd recognize what I'd done. And instead, I'm a burden who doesn't contribute. I picked up another statement. Did you know Carmen told everyone at Christmas that she's completely self-sufficient? She actually said she'd never needed help from anyone. Marissa was quiet for a long moment. Then she said the words I'd been afraid to hear. You have to stop. I can't. They depend on me. Anna, listen to yourself. They don't depend on you. They use you. There's a difference. She grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to look at her. When was the last time any of them asked how you're doing? When was the last time they celebrated your success? Hell, when was the last time they acknowledged that Santiago Logistics exists?
She was right. At every family gathering, Carmen dominated conversations about her real estate deals, while Luis pitched his latest scheme. But my company, the business that employed 200 people and generated the wealth that sustained all of them, it might as well have been invisible. I think they work some boring office job, I admitted. They have no idea what I actually do. Because you've hidden it. You've made yourself small to make them feel big. Marissa stood up, started pacing. Anna, you run a multi-million-dollar logistics company. You've got contracts with half the shipping companies on the West Coast. You employ entire families. You're successful beyond anything Carmen or Luis have ever dreamed of. And you've been pretending to be nothing so they can pretend to be everything. The truth of her words hit me like cold water. I had been hiding, not just my success, but myself. I'd become so focused on being their silent benefactor that I'd forgotten to exist as anything else. What if I stopped? The question escaped before I could think about it. What do you mean? The transfers, the support. All of it. My voice grew stronger. What if I just stopped? Marissa's smile was the first genuine warmth I'd felt all day. Then you'd find out who you really are when you're not carrying them on your back. That night, after Marissa left, I sat staring at my laptop screen. My banking website was open, the recurring transfer page glowing in the darkness. For 18 years, this had been automatic. $50,000 distributed among my family members every month, like clockwork. My finger hovered over the cancel button. I didn't cancel the transfers that night, but I didn't authorize them either. For the first time in 18 years, October 1st came and went without $50,000 appearing in my family's accounts. I waited, wondering how long they would take to notice. It took exactly 4 days. Carmen called first, Tuesday afternoon while I was in a contract meeting. I watched her name flash on my phone screen 3 times before I finally answered. Anna, there's been some kind of mistake. My mortgage payment bounced. The bank is calling me about insufficient funds. I'm sure that's unfortunate, I said calmly. Unfortunate? Anna, this is serious. I've never had a bounced payment in my life. My credit could be ruined. There was a pause. Then her voice grew suspicious. Did you forget to make your deposit? My deposit? As if I was her personal bank teller. I didn't forget anything, Carmen. Then what happened? The money always comes first. It's October 4th, Anna. 4 days late. For 18 years, I'd apologized for delays, explained technical difficulties, and reassured them that their money would arrive. This time, I simply said, I can't keep doing this. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Then, "What do you mean you can't keep doing this?" Exactly what I said. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. Anna, are you having financial problems? Did something happen at work? I know you've been struggling, but you can't just stop contributing to the family. We depend on you. We depend on you. The first honest thing she'd said in years. I'm not struggling, Carmen. I'm choosing. Choosing what? To abandon your family? Anna, this is ridiculous. Whatever petty issue you're having, we can discuss it like adults, but you can't hold the family hostage because you're upset about something. I'm not holding anyone hostage. I'm just not giving you money anymore. Not giving me... She sputtered. Anna, this isn't your money to give or not give. This is family money. This is how our family works. Family money. Money I earned from a company they didn't even know I owned, somehow transformed into family money the moment it hit their accounts. I have to go, Carmen. I'm in a meeting. Anna, don't you dare hang up on me. We need to resolve this right now.
I hung up. Luis called an hour later, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. Anna, what the hell is going on? My American Express payment got rejected. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was? I was at dinner with potential investors. I can imagine. Can you imagine? Anna, this could kill my deal. These people need to see that I'm financially solid. His voice cracked slightly. I need that money transferred today. Whatever weird game you're playing, it ends now. It's not a game, Luis. Then what is it? Carmen said you told her you're not giving money anymore. That's insane, Anna. You don't get to just decide that. We have agreements. What agreements? Family agreements. Understanding. You know how this works. His voice grew wheedling. Look, I get that you're upset about something. Maybe we don't appreciate you enough, maybe we take you for granted, but you can't punish the whole family because your feelings are hurt. My feelings aren't hurt, Luis. I'm just done. Done with what? Done with being part of this family? Done with being responsible? Done with being used. The word hung in the air like a challenge. Luis's breathing grew heavy. Used? Anna, that's a terrible thing to say. We're your family. We love you. Just because we're not as expressive as you might want doesn't mean we don't care about you. When was the last time you asked me how I was doing? What? Simple question, Luis. When was the last time you called me to see how I was doing? Not because you needed something, not because there was a family event, just to check on me. The silence stretched. That's not fair, Anna. You know I'm busy. We're all busy. Too busy to care about the person funding your life? It's not like that. What's it like then? It's family, Anna. The family takes care of each other. That's what families do. And what do you do for me? Another silence. Longer this time. Anna, please. I need this transfer today. My investors are expecting certain things. Then maybe you should have been more careful with your own money. My own money? Anna, this is family money. This is how we've always done things. How we've always done things is that I write checks and you spend them. That's not... His voice broke. Anna, please don't do this. I know we haven't been perfect, but we're your family. We need you. For just a moment, I wavered. The desperation in his voice, the vulnerability he rarely showed. This was my baby brother, the one I'd protected since childhood. Then I remembered his words from Carmen's dinner party. Anna doesn't understand what it means to build something. You're right, Luis. You do need me. The question is, do you deserve me? I hung up before he could answer. Mom called that evening. Anna, mija, what's this I'm hearing from Carmen and Luis? They say you're having some kind of crisis. I'm fine, Mom. They're worried about you. They say you're saying strange things about money. Is this about what Carmen said at dinner? You know she didn't mean anything by it. She called me a burden.
Anna. You know Carmen. She speaks without thinking sometimes. She was probably just stressed. And you agreed with her. I didn't agree. I just think maybe you could be more involved with the family, more present.
I've been present for 18 years, Mom, paying your bills, funding their businesses, covering their mistakes. How much more present could I be? What are you talking about, mija? You don't pay our bills. The words stopped me cold. What? You don't pay our bills, Anna. You have a little office job. Carmen and Luis, they're the successful ones. They help with family expenses. I sat in my kitchen, staring at the bank statements spread across my table, and realized the depth of their self-deception. They'd so completely rewritten reality that my own mother believed I was financially dependent on my siblings. Mom, who do you think pays for your medication? Carmen takes care of that. Your mortgage? Luis helps with the payments. Your car insurance, your groceries, your utilities? Anna, what's gotten into you? My children take care of me. Carmen and Luis, they're good to their mother. My children. Not her daughter Anna, who'd been quietly covering every expense for years. Her children, Carmen and Luis, who'd never contributed a dime but took all the credit. Mom, I need to ask you something, and I need you to really think about the answer. In the past 18 years, how much money do you think Carmen and Luis have actually given you? That's not the point, Anna. They're there for me emotionally. They visit, they call, they make time for family. And I don't? You work too much, mija. You're always busy with your job, your routine. You don't understand what it means to put family first. Put family first. I was looking at 18 years of putting family first, and somehow I'd become the selfish one. I have to go, Mom. Anna, don't be like this. Whatever's wrong, we can fix it. But you can't abandon your family just because you're upset. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm just not paying for everyone anymore. Paying for everyone? Anna, what are you talking about? I hung up and stared at my reflection in the dark window. Tomorrow, Carmen would probably organize a family meeting. They'd paint me as unstable, selfish, someone who'd snapped under pressure. They'd rally the extended family against me just like they had at dinner. But this time, I wouldn't be standing empty-handed in the corner. This time, I had 18 years of receipts. The ambush came 3 days later. I should have seen it coming when Mom called that Thursday morning. Anna, mija, can you come over tonight? I'm making your father's arroz con pollo recipe, family dinner, just like old times. Just like old times. The phrase should have been my warning. I arrived at Mom's house at 7, carrying a bottle of wine and hoping for a quiet evening. Instead, I found Carmen's Mercedes in the driveway, Luis's BMW parked behind it, and through the front window I could see the shadows of at least a dozen people in the living room. They'd called in reinforcements. Mom opened the door with that nervous smile she wore when she was about to disappoint me. Anna, look who's here. Everyone wanted to see you. Everyone. Aunt Rosa, Uncle Miguel, cousins I hadn't spoken to in months. All of them seated in Mom's living room like a tribunal, with Carmen and Luis positioned at the center like prosecutors ready to present their case. Anna, Carmen rose from the couch, her arms spread wide in a performance of sisterly affection. We're so glad you came. We've all been so worried about you. I set the wine on the coffee table and looked around the room. Every face carried the same expression. Concern tinged with judgment, worry mixed with disappointment. They'd already decided I was the problem. Worried about what? About this episode you're having, Luis said carefully, like he was speaking to someone unstable. Carmen told us about the financial issues you've been having.
I'm not having financial issues. Anna, please. Aunt Rosa leaned forward, her voice dripping with false sympathy. We're family. You don't need to pretend with us. If you're having money troubles, we can help. They could help. The people who'd lived off my money for 18 years wanted to help me with my financial problems. Carmen sat back down, smoothing her designer skirt. Anna, I think there's been a misunderstanding about the money situation. What misunderstanding? Well,
you've been saying some concerning things about supporting the family, about paying for things. She glanced around the room, gathering support from their audience. And we're worried that maybe you've gotten confused about how our family finances work. Confused? Luis jumped in, his voice gentle but condescending. Anna, we know you've always wanted to contribute more to the family, and that's admirable. But you don't need to pretend you've been supporting us all these years just to feel important. The room went deadly quiet. Even the clock on Mom's mantel seemed to stop ticking. Pretend? Anna, we love you, Carmen continued, her voice full of sisterly patience. But you work a little office job. You live in a rental apartment. You drive a 10-year-old Honda. You're not in a position to be supporting anyone, and that's okay. You don't need to make up stories about giving us money just because you're jealous of our success. Jealous. The word hit me like a physical blow. You think I'm jealous? It's natural, Uncle Miguel offered. Carmen and Luis have done so well for themselves. Sometimes that can be hard for other family members to accept. Anna, you've always struggled with our success, Mom said quietly, and those words cut deeper than anything Carmen had said. Ever since you were little, you resented that Carmen was popular, that Luis was charming. You've always wanted what they had. I stood in the middle of that living room surrounded by people who'd benefited from my generosity for nearly 2 decades and listened to them rewrite history in real time. I wasn't their silent benefactor. I was their jealous, delusional sister who'd invented stories about supporting them to make herself feel important. Anna, we think you need help, Carmen said, her voice thick with fake concern. These fantasies about giving us money, this delusion that you're some kind of family provider, it's not healthy. Fantasies. We've been talking, and we think maybe you should see someone, a therapist, or stop. The word came out harder than I intended, cutting through Carmen's performance. Just stop. The room fell silent. Carmen's concerned expression flickered for just a moment, revealing the calculation underneath. Anna, please don't get defensive. We're trying to help you. Help me? I laughed, and the sound was bitter even to my own ears. You want to help me? Of course we do. You're family. Family. I looked around the room at these people, my mother, my siblings, my relatives, who'd spent 18 years living off my success while convincing themselves I was a failure. You really believe it, don't you? You actually believe your own story. What story? Luis asked. But there was something nervous in his voice now. The story where Carmen is self-made, where Luis is an entrepreneur, and where I'm the family failure who's jealous of your success. I moved to the center of the room, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged there. Anna, you're starting to sound paranoid, Carmen said. But her voice had lost some of its confidence. Am I? Then explain something to me, Carmen. Your mortgage payment is $8,000 a month. Your real estate commissions last year totaled $180,000. How exactly do you afford that house? Carmen's face went pale. I have savings, investments. What investments? Anna, this is ridiculous. I don't need to justify my financial decisions to you. I turned to Luis. And you? 3 failed businesses in 5 years. Your current startup has no revenue and 12 employees. Where does your money come from?
I have investors, private backers. Name one. The silence stretched. Luis looked at Carmen, then at Mom, then back at me. Anna, what are you trying to prove here? I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm stating facts. I looked at each of them in turn. For 18 years, I've transferred $50,000 every month to support this family. $11 million divided between your mortgages, your credit cards, your business failures, your medical bills, your children's school tuition. $11 million from your jealous, unsuccessful, burdened sister. That's impossible, Mom whispered. Is it? Then where do you think your money comes from, Mom? Your Social Security is $1,800 a month. Your house payment is $2,500. Your medications cost $800. Your car insurance, utilities, groceries. Who pays for all of that? Carmen and Luis, help me. With what money? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Carmen stood up, her composure finally cracking. Anna, you're being cruel. You know Mom can't handle this kind of stress. I'm being honest. For the first time in 18 years, I'm being completely honest. Honest? You're having a breakdown. Carmen's voice rose, her mask of concern slipping. You're standing in Mom's living room making insane claims about supporting all of us. Anna, you can barely support yourself. You really believe that? I believe in reality. I believe what I can see. And what I see is my sister having some kind of psychotic break, making up elaborate fantasies about being our financial savior. Luis stood up beside Carmen, and suddenly they were both facing me like I was the enemy. Anna, you need professional help. This jealousy, these delusions, it's gotten completely out of control. Delusions? I nodded slowly. That's what you're going with. That I'm delusional. What else would you call it? Carmen spread her hands wide, appealing to the room. Look around, Anna. Look at our lives. Look at your life. Does it make sense that you, living in a rental apartment, working some office job we've never even heard of, does it make sense that you've been secretly supporting successful people like us? The extended family murmured agreement. Of course it didn't make sense. Look at me, plain Anna in her simple clothes, driving her modest car, living her quiet life. Look at them, beautiful Carmen with her mansion and Mercedes, charismatic Luis with his designer suits and business ventures. The story they'd created was so much more believable than the truth. You know what? Carmen's voice grew stronger, more confident. I'm done enabling this. Anna, if you really believe you've been giving us money, if you really think you've been supporting this family, then prove it. Prove it. Show us the bank records. Show us the transfers. Show us one shred of evidence that any of this is real. She looked around the room, gathering support. Because I think what we're going to find is that these transfers exist only in your head. The room was completely silent now. Even Mom was staring at me, waiting for my response. They'd backed me into a corner, challenged me to produce proof of claims they were certain were fantasies. Luis stepped forward, his voice gentler now, but no less devastating. Anna, we love you, but you can't keep living in these delusions. It's not healthy. And if you can't admit that these stories about supporting us are just jealous fantasies, then maybe we need to take more serious steps to get you help. What kind of steps? Carmen and Luis exchanged glances. Legal steps, if necessary. We can't let you keep making these accusations. They're damaging our reputations, our relationships. If you won't get help voluntarily, what, you'll sue me? We'll do whatever it takes to protect this family from your delusions. I looked around the room one more time, at my mother, who'd raised me but never seen me, at my siblings, who'd taken my money but erased my contribution, to my relatives, who'd accepted my generosity but denied my existence. You want proof? I asked quietly. Yes, Carmen said immediately. Show us proof or admit that you made it all up. I picked up my purse and headed for the door. You'll have your proof, all of you. Where are you going? Mom called after me. I turned back from the doorway. To get my lawyer.
I drove home with tears streaming down my face. Carmen's words echoing in my head. Jealous fantasies, psychotic break, delusions. Had I really been invisible for so long that my own family couldn't conceive of me as anything other than a failure? Marissa was waiting in my living room when I got home, having let herself in with her spare key. She took one look at my face and poured me a glass of wine without saying a word. "They think I'm having a breakdown," I said, collapsing onto my couch. "They think I invented the whole thing. Tell me what happened." So I did. Every word, every accusation, every moment of that humiliating tribunal. When I finished, Marissa was quiet for a long time. "They're gaslighting you," she said finally. "Or maybe they're right. Maybe I am delusional. Maybe I've been telling myself stories about being important, being needed, when really I'm just—" "Anna." Marissa's voice was sharp enough to cut through my spiral. "Stop. Right now." She walked to my kitchen table, where the financial documents were still scattered from days before, and started gathering them into neat stacks. "This is your mortgage payment history. $0 because you own this place outright." She held up another stack. "This is your investment portfolio. $12 million in diversified assets." Another stack. "This is Santiago Logistics' quarterly report. $15 million in revenue last quarter alone." She kept pulling documents, each one proof of a success my family couldn't even imagine. "This is your tax return from last year. Did you see the number on line 37? $2.8 million in adjusted gross income. Anna, you made more money last year than Carmen has made in her entire career." Then why do I feel like such a failure? Because they've spent 18 years convincing you that their story is the only story, because you've been so busy being their secret savior that you forgot to be your own hero. She sat beside me, her voice gentler now. "Anna, you run a company that employs 200 people. You've built something real, something valuable, something that exists whether your family acknowledges it or not. You are not delusional. You are not a failure. You are not a burden." "But what if—" "No," she cut me off. "No more what ifs, no more doubts. Your sister wants proof? Give her proof. Give all of them proof." "How?" "The same way you built your company. One step at a time, with documentation and facts they can't argue with." Marissa stood up, started pacing. "Anna, they're threatening to take legal action against you. They're talking about having you declared mentally incompetent. Do you understand what that means?" I didn't want to think about it. "It means they want to control your money. All of it. They think if they can paint you as delusional, they can get access to your assets. They have no idea how much money you actually have, but they know enough to want it." The thought made my stomach turn. They wouldn't. They just called you delusional in front of a room full of people. They accused you of making up your entire contribution to the family. Anna, they absolutely would. She was right. I'd seen it in Carmen's eyes when she issued her challenge. The calculation, the certainty that she was calling my bluff. She thought I was weak, desperate, making empty threats. She had no idea who she was actually fighting. What do I need to do? First, you need to protect yourself legally. I'm calling David Chen tomorrow. He's the best family attorney in the city. Marissa pulled out her phone, started making notes. Second, we need to organize every piece of financial documentation you have. Bank transfers, canceled checks, receipts, everything. And then we wait for them to make their move. Because they will, Anna. Carmen's ego won't let this go. She's going to double down, probably try to have you declared incompetent or sue you for defamation or something equally stupid. But what if they're right, though? What if I really have been delusional about how much I've helped them? Marissa stopped pacing and stared at me. Anna, I've been your business partner for 15 years. I've watched you build Santiago Logistics from nothing. I've seen every quarterly report.
Every tax return, every financial statement. I know exactly how much money you've made and exactly where it's gone. She pulled out her laptop, started typing. Do you want to know what your net worth would be if you hadn't been supporting your family? If you'd invested that $11 million instead of giving it away?
I'm not sure I want to know. $37 million. $37 million, Anna. That's what your generosity has cost you. The number hit me like a physical blow. $37 million. Enough to never work again, to travel the world, to buy anything I wanted. Instead, I'd given it away to people who called me a burden. They don't deserve your guilt, Marissa said quietly. They don't deserve your doubt, and they sure as hell don't deserve your money. That night, I made a decision that should have been easy, but felt like jumping off a cliff. I canceled every automatic transfer, every recurring payment, every financial connection to my family. Not just reduced, eliminated. If they wanted to call me delusional, I'd show them what life looked like without their supposed delusion. I also did something else, something I should have done years ago. I called Santiago Logistics' accounting department and had them prepare a complete financial history of my personal transfers. 18 years of documentation, organized by recipient, cross-referenced with bank records, notarized and sealed. If Carmen wanted proof, I'd give her proof she'd never forget. 3 days later, the lawsuit arrived. I found it slipped under my door when I came home from work. A thick manila envelope with Santiago v. Santiago printed in bold letters across the front. Inside, 16 pages of legal accusations that took my breath away. They were suing me for defamation, claiming my false statements about supporting the family had damaged their reputations. They were seeking monetary damages and a court order requiring me to publicly recant my delusional claims. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the psychiatric evaluation request. They wanted me declared mentally incompetent, with Carmen appointed as my guardian and conservator. They wanted legal control over my assets, my medical decisions, my entire life. The petition painted a picture of me as an unstable woman who'd become obsessed with her successful siblings, creating elaborate fantasies to cope with her own failures. It cited my erratic behavior, my paranoid delusions, and my inability to distinguish fantasy from reality. At the bottom of the last page, 3 signatures: Carmen Santiago, Luis Santiago, and Isabel Santiago. My own mother had signed a petition to have me declared insane. I sat on my couch holding those papers and felt something inside me break. Not my spirit, that had been broken years ago. Something deeper. The last thread of hope that my family loved me even a little. They didn't just want to discredit me, they wanted to destroy me. They wanted to take everything I built, everything I'd worked for, and claim it as their own, just like they'd done with my contributions for 18 years. But this time, I wasn't going to be silent. This time, I was going to fight back with everything I had. The San Diego County Superior Court was buzzing with anticipation when I arrived that Tuesday morning. Word had gotten out somehow, maybe Carmen's publicity-hungry friends, maybe the family's need to turn everything into theater, but the gallery was packed with familiar faces. Extended family members I hadn't seen in years sat in the front rows whispering amongst themselves like they were at a show. Aunt Rosa even brought her camera, though the bailiff made her put it away. Uncle Miguel kept checking his watch like he had somewhere more important to be, but his eyes never left the proceedings. Carmen sat at the plaintiff's table in a power suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary, navy blue with gold buttons, perfectly tailored, designed to project success and authority. Her hair was styled in what I'd come to think of as her courtroom look, swept back in a low bun that made her look serious but approachable, like a news anchor delivering tragic but important information. Louis flanked her other side, wearing his most expensive suit and the kind of subdued tie that said, "I'm wealthy but tasteful." They'd positioned themselves carefully, their body language suggesting unity, mutual support, the picture of successful siblings forced to deal with their troubled sister's breakdown. Their lawyer, Richard Sterling, was exactly what I had expected. Silver-haired, expensive suit, the kind of attorney who specialized in protecting wealthy families from embarrassing relatives. He spread his papers across the table with theatrical precision, every gesture calculated to suggest that this case was both tragic and straightforward.
Behind them in the gallery sat my mother. She wore her best black dress, the one she'd worn to Dad's funeral, and her hands were folded in her lap like she was praying.
Every few minutes, she'd dab at her eyes with a tissue, the picture of a mother forced to watch her daughter's public humiliation. I sat alone at the defendant's table. I'd chosen my outfit carefully, a simple gray suit, professional but not flashy, the kind of thing a competent businesswoman would wear to an important meeting. My hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, minimal makeup, and small gold earrings. I wanted to look stable, rational, the kind of person whose word could be trusted. David Chen, the lawyer Marissa had recommended, sat beside me reviewing his notes. He was younger than Sterling, less theatrical, but there was something steady about him that made me feel grounded. When he spoke, it was direct and clear, no wasted words. Remember, he told me during our preparation sessions, they're expecting you to break down, to prove their point about your mental state. Stay calm, stick to the facts, let the evidence speak for itself. The evidence. 4 banker's boxes full of documentation sat on a cart behind our table. 18 years of financial records, organized chronologically and cross-referenced by the recipient. Bank statements, wire transfer confirmations, canceled checks, tax returns. Every piece of paper that proved the story I'd been telling. Judge Valdez entered at exactly 10 a.m., a stern-looking woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and the kind of no-nonsense expression that suggested she'd seen every family drama the courtroom could produce. She settled into her chair, surveyed the packed gallery with raised eyebrows, and called the court to order. This is Santiago versus Santiago, case number SC 2024-8847. Will counsel please state their appearances for the record? Sterling rose first, his voice carrying the practiced authority of someone who'd argued hundreds of similar cases. Richard Sterling, representing the plaintiffs, Carmen Santiago, Luis Santiago, and Isabel Santiago. David stood beside me. David Chen, representing the defendant, Anna Santiago. Judge Valdez nodded and turned to Sterling. Counselor, please present your opening statement. Sterling moved to the center of the courtroom like an actor taking center stage. His voice was rich, sympathetic, perfectly modulated to reach the back row of the gallery. Your Honor, this is a tragic case about a woman who has become so consumed with jealousy and resentment toward her successful siblings that she has created an elaborate fantasy world in which she, not they, is responsible for the family's prosperity. He gestured toward Carmen and Luis. The evidence will show that the plaintiffs, Carmen Santiago and Luis Santiago, are accomplished professionals who have built successful careers through their own hard work and dedication. Carmen Santiago is a respected real estate agent who has generated millions in sales over her 15-year career. Luis Santiago is an entrepreneur who has launched multiple business ventures and continues to pursue innovative opportunities in the technology sector. I watched the gallery and nod along. This was the story they knew, the story they'd been told for years. The defendant, Anna Santiago, has always struggled with her siblings' success. Unable to achieve similar heights in her own career, she has constructed an increasingly elaborate delusion in which she claims to have been secretly funding their lifestyles for nearly 2 decades. Sterling's voice grew more concerned, more sympathetic. Your Honor, the defendant claims to have given her family $11 million over 18 years. $11 million? From a woman who works a clerical position and lives in a modest rental apartment? Murmurs from the gallery. Even some people who didn't know our family seemed skeptical. The plaintiffs have tried to help their sister. They've offered counseling, support, and intervention. But her delusions have only grown more elaborate and more damaging. She now publicly accuses them of living off money she never had, of being financially dependent on support she never provided. Sterling returned to his table, and I could feel the sympathy in the room shifting toward Carmen and Luis. They looked like the victims now,
Successful, caring siblings forced to publicly confront their sister's breakdown. Judge Valdez turned to David. Mr. Chen, your opening statement. David stood slowly, his approach completely different from Sterling's theatrical presentation. He walked to the center of the courtroom and stood there quietly for a moment, making eye contact with the judge, then the jury of family members in the gallery.
Your Honor, they say the truth has a way of coming out. Today, you're going to learn the truth about the Santiago family, and I promise you, it's not the story you just heard. He turned slightly, including the gallery in his address. Anna Santiago is not delusional. She's not jealous. She's not having a breakdown. Anna Santiago is a successful businesswoman who has spent 18 years quietly supporting a family that has not only failed to acknowledge her generosity, but has now decided to punish her for it. David's voice remained calm, conversational, but there was steel underneath. The evidence will show that Anna Santiago is the founder and majority owner of Santiago Logistics, a company that generates over $60 million in annual revenue. The evidence will show that she has personally transferred $50,000 per month, every month, to support her family's lifestyle for the past 18 years. The murmuring in the gallery grew louder. Judge Valdez tapped her gavel once. The evidence will show bank records, wire transfers, canceled checks, and tax returns that document every penny of the $11 million Anna Santiago has given to this family. Money that paid for Carmen Santiago's house, Luis Santiago's failed businesses, Isabel Santiago's medical expenses, and the extended family's various needs. David gestured toward our table, where the boxes of evidence sat waiting. Your Honor, the plaintiffs have accused Anna Santiago of defamation, but you cannot defame someone by telling the truth. They've accused her of being mentally ill, but you cannot be delusional about facts that can be documented and verified. He paused, his voice growing quieter but more intense. What we have here is not a woman having a breakdown. What we have here is a family that has become so accustomed to living off Anna Santiago's generosity that they cannot imagine life without it. And when she finally decided to stop enabling their dependency, they decided to destroy her rather than face the truth about themselves. David returned to our table, and the courtroom was completely silent. Judge Valdez consulted her notes. Mr. Sterling, please call your first witness. Your Honor, the plaintiffs call Carmen Santiago to the stand. Carmen rose gracefully, smoothed her skirt, and walked to the witness stand with the kind of confidence that comes from years of commanding rooms. She placed her left hand on the Bible, raised her right hand, and swore to tell the truth with a clear, steady voice. Sterling approached the witness stand. Miss Santiago, please tell the court about your professional background. I'm a licensed real estate agent with Coastal Properties. I've been in real estate for 15 years, and I specialize in luxury properties in the La Jolla and Del Mar areas. Last year alone, I closed over $40 million in sales. And your financial situation? I'm financially independent. I own my home outright, I have substantial savings and investments, and I've never needed financial assistance from anyone. The lie came so easily, so naturally, that for a moment I wondered if she actually believed it. Miss Santiago, has your sister Anna ever given you money? No, Anna works a clerical job at some small company. She doesn't have money to give anyone. Has she ever claimed to support you financially? Carmen's expression grew sad, concerned. Recently, yes. She's been making these strange claims about giving us money, supporting the family. It's very troubling. How long has this been going on? The claim started a few months ago, but looking back, I think Anna's been struggling with jealousy and resentment for years. She's always been the least successful member of our family, and I think watching Luis and me thrive has been difficult for her. I watched this performance, this complete rewriting of reality, and felt a strange calm settle over me. Carmen was so confident, so convincing, so absolutely certain that her version of events would prevail. She had no idea what was coming. Sterling continued his questioning for another 20 minutes, establishing Carmen's success, her independence, her concern for her troubled sister. When he finished, Judge Valdez turned to David. Mr. Chen, your witness. David stood and walked toward Carmen with a banker's box in his hands. He set it on the table in front of the witness stand and opened it calmly. Ms. Santiago, you testified that you've never received money from your sister Anna. Is that correct?
That's correct. David pulled out a thick folder. Your Honor, I'd like to introduce Exhibit A, bank records showing wire transfers from Anna Santiago to Carmen Santiago spanning the years 2007 to 2024. He handed copies to Sterling, to the judge, and approached Carmen. Miss Santiago, I'm showing you a wire transfer receipt dated September 15th, 2007. It shows a transfer of $50,000 from Anna Santiago to Carmen Santiago with the memo, house down payment. Do you recognize this document? Carmen stared at the paper, her confident expression flickering for the first time. This must be some kind of mistake. A mistake? This is your bank account number, correct? David pointed to the receipt. And this is your signature on the deposit slip, correct? The courtroom was completely silent. Even the bailiff had stopped moving. Carmen looked toward Sterling, toward Luis, toward Mom. I don't understand what this is supposed to prove. David pulled out another document. Let me show you another one. October 1st, 2007, $50,000 from Anna Santiago to Carmen Santiago with the memo, house down payment. Another document. November 1st, 2007, same amount, same accounts. Another. December 1st, 2007. He kept pulling out receipts, one after another, his voice never changing, never rising, just stating facts with devastating precision. January 2008, February 2008, March 2008. Miss Santiago, I have here 216 transfer receipts documenting $50,000 sent from your sister to you every month for the past 18 years. That's a total of $10.8 million. The gasp from the gallery was audible. Carmen sat frozen in the witness chair, staring at the mountain of evidence in front of her. Judge Valdez leaned forward. Ms. Santiago, do you wish to revise your testimony? Carmen's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. For the first time in her life, she had nothing to say. David turned to face the gallery, his voice carrying clearly through the stunned silence. Your Honor, Anna Santiago is not delusional. She is not jealous. She is not having a breakdown. Anna Santiago is a woman who has spent 18 years quietly supporting a family that has not only taken her generosity for granted, but has now attempted to have her declared mentally incompetent rather than acknowledge the truth. He turned back to Carmen. The question isn't whether Anna Santiago supported her family. The evidence proves that beyond any doubt. The question is why this family is so desperate to deny it. Judge Valdez looked at me for the first time since the hearing had begun. Ms. Santiago, how do you respond to these allegations? I stood slowly, feeling the weight of 18 years lifting off my shoulders. The entire courtroom was staring at me. My family, the extended relatives who dismissed me for years. Even the court reporter had stopped typing and was looking up expectantly. For 18 years, I'd been silent. I had absorbed their criticism, their dismissal, their cruelty, all while quietly keeping them afloat. Not anymore. I stood slowly, my hands steady for the first time in months. Every eye in that courtroom was on me, my family, the extended relatives who'd dismissed me for years. Even the court reporter had stopped typing and was looking up expectantly. Your Honor, I said, my voice clear and calm, I'd like to present additional evidence. David nodded and wheeled forward the remaining 3 banker's boxes. The gallery murmured as he began pulling out binders, each one thick with documentation. This is 18 years of financial records, bank statements, wire transfers,
canceled checks, tax returns, every dollar I've given to this family, documented and verified. I picked up the first binder and opened it. September 2007, Carmen's house down payment, $50,000. I set it down and picked up another. Louis's first restaurant venture, $75,000. It failed within 8 months. Carmen sat frozen in the witness chair, her face pale. Louis had gone rigid at the plaintiff's table. Mom's surgery in 2010, $30,000 for medical expenses not covered by insurance. I looked directly at Isabel, sitting in the gallery. You told the nurses how blessed you were to have successful children who could help in your time of need. You never mentioned my name. The courtroom was dead silent. Even Judge Valdez was leaning forward, transfixed.
I continued methodically, pulling out document after document. Carmen's kitchen renovation, Luis's cryptocurrency investment, Mom's new car, Aunt Rose's granddaughter's private school tuition, Uncle Miguel's business loan payments, Cousin Maria's wedding expenses. With each revelation, I watched the extended family's faces change. The people who nodded along when Carmen called me a burden were now staring at proof of their own dependence on me. $50,000 every month for 216 consecutive months. I gestured to the mountain of evidence. That's $10.8 million in direct transfers. But that's not all. David handed me another folder. Credit card payments made directly to vendors, medical bills paid to hospitals, mortgage payments made to banks, another $1.2 million in expenses I covered without routing through your accounts. Luis finally found his voice. That's impossible. Anna doesn't have that kind of money. I turned to face him fully. Doesn't have that kind of money? Luis, do you even know what I do for a living? He looked confused, panicked. You work at some office? I own Santiago Logistics. It's a shipping and warehousing company with contracts throughout Southern California. We employ 200 people and generate $64 million in annual revenue. The gasp from the gallery was audible. Carmen gripped the arms of the witness chair. Last year alone, my personal income was $2.8 million. The year before that, $3.1 million. The modest apartment you mock? I own it outright. The 10-year-old Honda you sneer at? I could buy a fleet of Maseratis. I choose not to because I don't need material possessions to validate my worth. I walked closer to Carmen, still sitting stunned in the witness chair. You called me a burden, Carmen. You said I don't contribute to this family. But the truth is, without my contributions, there would be no family success to speak of. Your house? My money. Your car? My money. The designer clothes you're wearing right now? Paid for with money I earned. Judge Valdez looked at Sterling. Counselor, does your client wish to revise her testimony in light of this evidence? Sterling looked shock-shelled. Your Honor, we weren't aware of the defendant's financial situation. You weren't aware because you never asked. For 18 years, you took my money and convinced yourselves it was your success. You created a story where I was the failure and you were the hero, and you told that story so many times, you started believing it. I turned to address the entire gallery. Every person in this room has benefited from my generosity, every single one, and not one of you ever asked where the money came from, not one of you said thank you. The silence was deafening. Judge Valdez called for a brief recess, but I wasn't finished. As the gallery buzzed with shocked whispers and Carmen stumbled off the witness stand, I remained standing. Your Honor, if I may, there's one more thing this court should know. She nodded, settling back into her chair. The murmur in the gallery died instantly. My family has spent this entire proceeding painting me as jealous of their success. They've suggested that I fabricated these financial records out of some desperate need to feel important. I gestured to the evidence spread across our table.
But there's something they don't understand about success. I walked to the center of the courtroom, addressing not just the judge, but the entire room. While I was giving them $50,000 every month, I was also investing my own money, building my business, diversifying my portfolio, creating actual, sustainable wealth instead of just spending someone else's. David handed me a leather portfolio. This is my current financial statement, certified by Henderson and Associates, the accounting firm that handles Santiago logistics. I opened it and read aloud. Total assets, $37.2 million. That includes my business equity, real estate holdings, investment accounts, and liquid assets. The number hit the room like a thunderbolt. Even Judge Valdez's eyebrows shot up. $37 million. That's what I'm worth today after giving away $11 million to this family. If I had invested that money instead of supporting people who called me a burden, my net worth would be approaching $50 million. Carmen had gone completely white. Luis looked like he might be sick. Your Honor, my family has spent this entire proceeding painting me as jealous of their success. They've suggested that I fabricated these financial records out of some desperate need to feel important. I closed the portfolio with a sharp snap.
They didn't realize is that I don't need them. I never needed them. I chose to support them out of love, out of loyalty, out of some misguided belief that family meant something. I turned to face Carmen and Luis directly. But you've shown me what family means to you. It means taking without giving. It means demanding without gratitude. It means calling someone a burden while living off their generosity. My voice grew quieter, but more intense. So let me be clear about something. The gravy train has ended permanently. Not just the monthly transfers, everything. No more mortgage payments, no more credit card bailouts, no more business loans, no more emergency funds. Nothing. Luis half rose from his chair. Anna, you can't just, I can and I have. Every account is closed. Every automatic payment is canceled. Every financial connection between us has been severed. I picked up one last document from David's table. This is a legal notice, served on all of you as of this morning. Any further contact attempting to request, demand, or guilt me into providing financial support will be considered harassment and will result in restraining orders. The courtroom was so quiet I could hear the ventilation system. You wanted to know if I was delusional, Your Honor? Here's the truth. I was delusional. For 18 years, I was delusional enough to believe that my family loved me. I was delusional enough to think that generosity would be appreciated, that sacrifice would be acknowledged, that loyalty would be returned. I looked around the room one last time, meeting the eyes of relatives who'd dismissed me, siblings who'd betrayed me, a mother who'd signed papers to have me declared insane. I'm not delusional anymore. Judge Valdez reviewed the financial statements David had provided, her expression growing more severe with each page. Mr. Sterling, given this new evidence, how does your client wish to proceed? Sterling conferred with Carmen in hushed whispers, but I could see the panic in both their faces. Their entire case had been built on the assumption that I was a failed woman making up stories about success. Confronted with documented proof of my wealth and their dependency, they had nothing left. Sterling said, Your Honor, we request time to review these new materials. Request denied. The evidence is straightforward. Ms. Santiago, based on what we've seen today, I'm dismissing all claims against you. Furthermore, I'm ordering the plaintiffs to pay your legal costs. She banged her gavel once. This court finds that Anna Santiago has provided substantial, documented evidence supporting her claims of financial support to her family. There is no evidence of defamation, no evidence of mental competence, and no grounds for the relief sought by the plaintiffs. As people began filing out of the courtroom, I remained standing at the defendant's table, finally free. The courthouse steps were chaotic. Reporters had materialized from somewhere.
probably tipped off by the same family gossip network that had packed the gallery, and they swarmed around me as I emerged into the San Diego sunshine. Miss Santiago, how does it feel to be vindicated? What's your response to your family's accusations? Will you ever reconcile with them? I paused on the top step, looking down at the crowd of cameras and microphones. Behind me, I could hear Carmen and Louis arguing with their lawyer, their voices sharp with panic as reality set in. Their empire, built on my money, was crumbling in real time. Family isn't about entitlement, I said simply. It's about mutual respect, gratitude, and genuine care for each other. When those things are missing, blood relations become just biology. A reporter pushed forward. Are you saying you'll never help them again? I'm saying I finally understand the difference between helping someone and enabling them. I spent 18 years enabling people who saw my generosity as weakness and my love as obligation. Through the crowd, I watched my extended relatives hurrying to their cars, avoiding eye contact with Carmen and Louis. The same people who'd nodded along when I was called a burden were now rushing to distance themselves from the family whose lifestyle they assumed was legitimate. Aunt Rosa actually crossed to the other side of the street rather than walk past me. Uncle Miguel, who just learned his business loan payments had been coming from me, ducked his head and practically ran to his Mercedes, the one I helped him finance. The reporters kept pushing, but I was done performing for audiences.
That's all I have to say. I started walking toward my Honda, parked modestly between a BMW and a Tesla. Anna, I turned to see my mother standing alone at the bottom of the courthouse steps. The relatives had abandoned her too, rushing off to process what they'd learned. She looked small suddenly, older, wearing the same black dress she'd worn to testify against my competence. I walked down to meet her, the reporters following but keeping a respectful distance. "Mija," she said quietly, her voice breaking slightly. "I didn't know." "You didn't know because you never asked. All of these years, I thought Carmen and Luis were taking care of me. They told me they were paying for things, helping with expenses. They were helping with my money." She looked down at her hands, twisted with arthritis medications I'd been paying for without her knowledge. "Can you forgive me?" The question hung between us. This woman who'd raised me, who'd favored my siblings, who'd signed papers to have me declared insane rather than believe I might be successful. "Mom, I forgave you years ago. That's why I kept paying your bills even when you called me a disappointment. That's why I covered your medical expenses even when you told people your other children were the ones taking care of you." Tears started rolling down her cheeks. "What can I do? How can I make this right?" I looked at this woman who'd given birth to me but never really seen me, who'd shaped my childhood but never understood my adulthood. You can start by learning who I actually am instead of who you think I should be. I kissed her forehead gently, the way she used to kiss mine when I was small, and she still had hopes for who I might become. "But Mom, I'm done trying to earn your approval. I'm done trying to prove my worth to people who refuse to see it. I'm finally going to live my life for me." I walked to my car as the reporters dispersed and the courthouse emptied. In my rearview mirror, I could see Carmen and Luis standing alone on the steps, their lawyer gone, their supporters fled, their illusions shattered. For 18 years, I'd been invisible in my own family's story. Now I was finally free to write my own. That evening, I sat in my little apartment with Marissa, sharing a bottle of wine and watching the sunset through my window. My phone buzzed with a message from Maria Rodriguez, a scholarship recipient I'd been quietly funding through college. "Miss Santiago, I just got accepted to medical school. Thank you for believing in me when no one else would. You saved my life." I smiled, showing Marissa the message. This was what generosity looked like when it mattered. Lifting up someone who appreciated it, who used it to build something real. "No regrets?" Marissa asked. I thought about my family, probably scrambling to figure out how they'd pay their bills now.
about the relatives who dismissed me for years, about 18 years of being invisible in my own family story. None, I said, raising my glass. I'm finally free. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.